was on the way to go pick Nelson up. I thought I might talk about humour, and it doesn't matter how assimilated you get into Japanese culture or how well you speak the language. Humour is something that is instilled. It's part of you. It's part of your experience. It's part of who you are, and that never changes. Shout out to our new Patreon member, Heather. Gets the Gigi dance. Go Gigi, go Gigi, go Gigi, go Gigi, and a kiss for Heather. Kiss for Heather. Good boy. Thanks a lot, Heather, for supporting the channel. You're a legend. Good all. Shout out to Paul for your support on Buy Me a Cat Food, on the Buy Me a Coffee. Very much appreciated. You're a legend. So, what you find funny in your culture, it's not going to change much, no matter what happens. So, you can be in a group of Japanese people, and what they find funny is not even slightly amusing. What you find absolutely hilarious, they might find uncivilized. So, as an example, in Japan, there's no such thing as a well-timed fart. So every culture, even cultures that speak the same language, they just have a different type of humour. So what an Australian will find funny, an American won't. And what an American finds absolutely hilarious, an Australian won't. So it's not a matter of speaking the language or whatever. It's just part of who you are. So there's no way to be 100% assimilated. This is my opinion on the matter. It's not like you can take yourself out of somewhere and not take the somewhere out of yourself. So this is something that I'm not sure people might delude themselves about, but there will always be a difference, no matter what culture you're from, and this will show in your communication and the dynamics of friendships and as such. So you'll find yourself in situations where you just don't find things particularly funny, you know, and there will be stories in your life that you find absolutely hilarious, but you won't be able to share them because one, they won't find it funny, and two, they might find it uncivilized or something. So these are the sort of hurdles you're going to have here, and it doesn't bother me. You know, you can always get your comedy fix on the internet or with people from the same country as you. But just remember this, is that you're going to miss this while you're here. And humour is, and being able to laugh and whatever, it's underrated, I think. There's two cultures that come to mind for not having a sense of humour in the world. It's quite famous. Doesn't mean they don't have a sense of humour, but they have the image of not having a sense of humour, and one of them is Germans and the other are Japanese. So what a German finds funny is not what other Europeans or most cultures find funny, and vice versa. Germans tend to be the hardest people to make laugh. They tend to come across as very serious, but they have their own type of humour, and so do the Japanese. They laugh quite a lot, but it doesn't mean that you find it funny. For anyone who's watched the abomination that is Japanese television, and what they see as funny and comedic. 99% of the stuff you see on the TV here is not even mildly amusing to me. But people will actually, rush to watch it. Some sort of I wouldn't even call it D-grade comedy. It's just really bad, but they love it, and they love the knowing what the joke's going to be, so that they know the punchlines. A lot of their comedy is that people know what's going to happen and they sort of know what the punchline is, and they find that kind of funny as well. That's why you have this sort of reaction thing. So you'll watch television and they'll put little blocks in the left-hand corner or the top right-hand corner, and it'll show the hosts and their reaction. And most people will watch the reaction of these people to find the whole thing funny. It's quite bizarre. So it's like these guys that have these YouTube channels, and it's basically them ripping off somebody's content, and they're just sitting there smiling and reacting to it, and it's quite popular with a lot of people. They like to see, this certain YouTube guy or gal's reaction to something, and of course it's all put on and whatever, but it's sort of similar to that in a way. People know when they watch these YouTubers what their reaction is going to be, but they still press on it. It's absolutely amazing. So in true Japanese fashion, nothing's like too spontaneous. Like, they do have some sort of out there crazy shows, but this is not the norm. Most of it is sort of staged. Like each episode or each week, it follows a similar recipe. Everything sort of has a recipe, and people like that. They know what they're in for. So it's like having a variety show. People know which segment's coming next, and they get all excited about it, and they're almost prepared themselves to laugh without even hearing what the jokes are going to be. So it's much unlike what we call shock jocks in Australia, and the shock jocks say really funny off the cuff things that people just don't expect, and it's not always like something shocking. It can be just something just absolutely hilarious. This doesn't seem to be the style here at all. That sort of thing I find funny. The Japanese wouldn't. They'd find that uncivilized or something like that. I'm not sure, but yeah. And any sort of farting, even something like that. There's no such thing as a well-timed fart. It's just not funny at all in any flavour. Any sort of dirty joke is never funny in Japan, so it doesn't matter, how witty it is or whatever. If it's sort of a little bit dirty or whatever, you would never get away with like that sort of humour, if that's the sort of humour you like as well. So it's all pretty clean, and the sort of humour that I come from is sort of a little bit self-deprecating at times, and a little bit embarrassing for others. So I'll give you like an example, a real life example, which is one of the funniest days ever in the kitchen. I was working for a boss, and it was a high-end restaurant, and they were quite wealthy, and his wife is a bit posh, and he took his wife to Singapore, and these guys don't scrimp and scrape when they go. They're not stingy at all. So the best restaurants, the best hotels, everything. So he took his wife to the 5-star restaurant, 5-star hotel. I think it was the Hilton. And anyway, she ate something. during the day, and she shit herself in the elevator of this this 5-star hotel. And his wife is one of the most poshest ladies you'll ever likely to meet. The Queen would be on her best behaviour around her, like fully conservative posh. So anyway, we're working in the kitchen, and they come back from their holiday, and he comes basically running into the restaurant. Opens the doors of the kitchen. He says, "You'll never believe this." And we're like, "What?" And he says, "Carol shit herself in the elevator," you know. And that's, for us, that is absolutely hilarious. But for Japanese, they would never do that. They would never find that funny, and that would all be hushed up and pretend that it never happened. But for us, that's Australian humour, because he knows that we'd find that funny, because his wife's super posh and she would never want anyone to know that. And after his wife come in and hearing us all laugh and carrying on, "What's going on?" And he says, "You know, you can't expect a man to keep that a secret." So that sort of humour just wouldn't go down in Japan. And if you were to tell a story like that, they think there's something strange about you. So my wife's in the car with me at the moment, and she can see the humour in it. It's got a bit of a smile or whatever. But even she agrees, you know, this sort of joke or this sort of situation could never be told here, because it's just so different to the humour. So they will have a similar humour that's totally foreign to me, and I just don't find it funny, and they wouldn't find that sort of thing funny. They'd probably find it, you know, uncivilized. And the whole funny thing about a situation like that is he's an Aussie, older Aussie at the time, and he was dead serious that a man shouldn't be allowed to keep that to himself. He wasn't saying it as a joke. He was saying it as a matter of fact. That's what was doubly funny about it, is that she's probably asked him to swear an oath never to say anything, and that's the first thing he said about his holiday. And just the way these situations get told by people, the way jokes are told, that's half the fun in a joke, is the way someone tells it. And you don't get this sort of nuance if you're not a native speaker. So something can actually be really funny when it's explained back to you sometimes, but unless you get the nuance of the situation and the background and sort of why that's funny, if you haven't grown up in that culture, you're going to miss everything. And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that sort of background knowledge, if you've grown up here since a kid, is it can't be replaced. So you're just not going to find that sort of dynamic with people. So let's go pick Nelson up. Where are these expensive dogs? There's Nelson. How are you, mate? There's the old man. He's all shaved up. So guys, if you were to meet a Japanese lady here and any of that sort of humour, or telling a story like that on your wife, you might as well go straight to the divorce office. That just is not going to wash at all. So anyway, doesn't matter what type of humour you like, even if you don't like Australian humour, it doesn't matter. Chances are the people here aren't going to like your humour. So you need to be mindful of that, and you might say some things or whatever that you might think is funny that comes from your culture. Doesn't have to be Australian humour, but they're not going to like it. So you're going to have a similar situation. It doesn't matter where you're from.
Let's go home.